Today's video features a Magic the Gathering champion who gets caught making the most ridiculous illegal play. The villain of today's video is me. I'm playing in the NRG Series Champions Tournament, the end-of-year event that pits all NRG champions of the year against each other. I won my invitation by becoming the NRG champion in June of 2024.
So you kind of got it all locked up, and Nikachu been playing really great all weekend, just making sure in this last second he's not throwing it away. And congratulations, Merfolk wins!
Today's hero is pro player and fellow NRG champion, Matthew Hoey. It just so happens I faced Matthew 6 years ago, when my Merfolk deck lost to his Humans deck. Now, would I do anything to get revenge on my opponent, or am I about to play like a bumbling moron? Let's take a look at the action.
A really strong start for Hoey here with the turn 1 Lotus Bloom. It looks like we're shocking lands in twice in a row to get this Archaeologist into play.
So we got Lotus Bloom in on 1, and then we got Archaeologist on 2. I mean, this is really one of your best sequences, and this can find anything. It looks like it found 2 copies of Belcher and a Whir of Invention. Have to imagine we want Belcher.
My opponent plays the Philology Archaeologist, which puts the top 3 cards of his deck into the graveyard, and then gets to choose a non-creature, non-land card to put into his hand. Matthew Hoey picks up his deck's namesake card, the Goblin Charbelcher, a 4-mana artifact with the following ability. Pay 3 and tap it to reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal a land card. Goblin Charbelcher deals damage equal to the number of non-land cards revealed this way. But here's the thing, technically this deck isn't playing any lands. All the land sources are on the backside of a bunch of spell cards. That means the Goblin Charbelcher will dump the entire deck for a one-shot kill. I can't let Hoey activate that Charbelcher.
We already have a Lotus Bloom, which is what the Whir represents. So I do like finding a Belcher here. Kind of face up, but whatever. I mean, what you're doing is face up.
As for me, I play Master of the Pearl Trident, as I'm devoted to Merfolk. This is a blue creature deck, which means I can attack for damage while disrupting my opponent with tricky creatures and counter spells. But here's the thing, I decide to play a new card I've never played before, called Consign to Memory. Counter target triggered ability or colorless spell. Well, that's perfect because Charbelcher is a colorless card. Everything is going according to plan.
Untapped sources, but I suppose just no 1-drops. As back to Hoey, we're gonna play another Archaeologist.
This whole thing has been a loud signal to Hoey. As soon as you start on tap land, that means no pressure. And your turn 2 is a Lord, typically the thing you want to play last, this Master of the Pearl Trident. If you're Hoey, that should signal loud alarm bells. There is a lot of free interaction on the other side of the table. There's no pressure at all. And what you're seeing here aren't disruptive creatures. So there is just going to be a ton of counter magic. And if you're just tapping out willy-nilly, a lot of it's going to be free. And I think that's going to be true for what Nikachu has going on. And I think if you're Hoey, that's something you can actually just assume to be true, as a 2-2 is not going to manage to get through an 0-3. It's a lot of work to do.
I play Svelune of Sea and Sky, a merfolk that draws a card each turn she attacks. And with extra cards, that's going to be extra problems for my combo opponent. So he has to make a move before it's too late.
For Nikachu.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to see the Svelune come down, and the Lotus Bloom's going to come off suspend for Hoey, back on his turn.
Kind of surprised in a deck with 4 copies of Whir of Invention and all these, various creatures that can find it, not to see like a singleton copy of Defense Grid or whatever in the sideboard for spots like this, where you could just like wait if you want. Now, obviously, Hoey feels very confident, so maybe you just never need it, as here goes a backup to cast the Force. Yeah, as we're going to start a big fight here, I'm just kind of surprised not to see any kind of artifacts you could find to help fight through a lot of this without having to commit a bunch of cards.
Yeah, we're going to see the Mystical Dispute come down on this Force. Nikachu does have the option to force this, which looks like he is going to do.
The War of the Counter Spells starts now. Matthew Hoey plays his win condition, the Goblin Charbelcher, but then I snap off Force of Negation to counter it. playing it for free by exiling a card from my hand. Hoey responds in kind with Mystical Dispute, which counters my blue card. But I'm not gonna go down so easy, as I respond with another Force of Negation, leaving myself with only one card left in hand. And the thing is, Hoey has Pact of Negation in hand, a counter spell, which can be played for free, but with a catch. If he can't pay 5 mana next turn, he'll lose.
Yeah, I don't... this pact is kind of tough. Because what can happen here, so he's thinking about pacting, right? Which would make the Belcher work. And then on your next turn, you can activate the Belcher with your 3 lands before you have to pay for the trigger.
Now, my opponent was this far deep on the stack, so it was time to move all in. With the Pact of Negation, which resolves the Charbelcher. Except he can't activate it yet because he doesn't have 3 mana up. Now the danger to Hoey is that his Pact of Negation will kill him next turn. But he's got a plan. With the Pact of Negation trigger on the stack next turn, he can activate the Goblin Charbelcher in response to kill me first. But what Hoey doesn't know is my last card. And that card is Sink into Stupor, which can bounce his Charbelcher back to hand. And without the Charbelcher in play, Matthew will just lose to his Pact of Negation trigger.
But Nikachu's leftovers is Sink into Stupor. So he just bounced the Belcher and he dies to the trigger.
Very interesting.
Oh no, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. Nikachu looks calm, cool, and collected. Now the beatdowns don't matter. Your opponent has a trigger to pay for that they currently cannot. Uh-oh.
We're gonna see the attack here.
Yeah, a formality.
Draw a card, a Consign to Memory.
Take 3 points, please. Alright, I think you do have to bounce main phase. So we're gonna have to do that before we pass on over. No way to do it around Dispute, which I think is what Nikachu's thinking about right now.
All I have to do is play my Sink into Stupor, and the game is over.
Yeah, the Consign, okay. It's also checking to make sure the Consign doesn't work against it. Yeah, I believe it is as simple as bounce the Belcher to opponent's hand, they die to trigger, win the game. I don't know. I don't know if this is posturing as we get a look into Sink into Stupor. I believe I saw one in his hand. And, that'll bounce Belcher back. There you go, return target non-land permanent. I want to choose that mode. You can't pass, though. Oh, no! Oh, no!
It's tough.
Consign. That gets an activated ability. Oh, no!
What the hell was that? I pass the turn, and in response to my opponent activating his Goblin Charbelcher, I respond with Consign to Memory? And my opponent snap resigns? Does anyone see the problem here? You see, Consign to Memory can counter triggered abilities, but Goblin Charbelcher uses an activated ability. They're not the same thing. I had the chance to win this game legally, and instead won it illegally.
So in the end, I pass the turn, they activate, I consign, and they conceded.
I have confusion. I thought the text box of Consign to Memory is counter target triggered ability or colorless spell.
Oh! So the questions are, what was even going on here? How did it happen? And what did a judge think of the situation? On my last turn of the game, I know I have to play the Sink into Stupor. The question is when. I first attack with my Svelune to draw a card, to maximize my options. I draw Consign into Memory, which I quickly dismiss. So I want to play Sink into Stupor on my turn, but what if my opponent has Force of Negation? A card commonly played in Charbelcher decks. Hoey could play it for free, and I would be lost on the spot. Since this is the last turn of the match, I take 2 reads at Goblin Charbelcher to see if I can bounce it on Hoey's turn, which, if I can, would overload his mana because he can't cast a counterspell and activate the Charbelcher at the same time. But sadly, Charbelcher doesn't need to be in play for the ability to resolve, so if I bounce it after it's activated, I still get blasted in the face and lose. So this idea doesn't even work. But while I'm reading, Matthew makes a comment something like, figuring how to play your Consign, right? And when I look back at my hand, it's staring right at me again. It's consigned to memory. And now my mentality switches. Oh my god, I drew consigned to memory. Why didn't I realize this earlier? My Pro Tour opponent saw this a mile away. I stopped wasting time, passed the turn, and illegally consigned with replication the Charbelcher's activated ability. And because my opponent also thinks this works, he conceded immediately. I also showed that I was actually thinking of Sink into Stupor, which my opponent says was good anyway. This game ends so stupid that the commentators assume my opponent won.
It looks like he's gonna get to activate his Belcher, and he's gonna win 2-1 over Nikachu and his take on Merfolk, whatever happened.
And now it begs the question, between the two of us, how did this even happen? Remember, this is the first tournament I'm playing with Consigned to Memory. It was a meta call to beat decks like Charbelcher. I loosely understand Consigned to Memory like this. Counters artifacts, counters Eldrazi's, counters the ability on Evoke Elementals, half of Stifle, a card that counters activated and triggered abilities. And in the moment, I forgot which half it was. But what about my opponent? Figuring how to play or consign, right? Well, Matthew told me after the match that he didn't fully understand Consigned to Memory either. It was a pretty new card to the Modern format, and he only played a handful of games of Modern in preparation for the event. Now, my opponent is not to blame. He can say and think whatever he wants about Consigned to Memory. He's not playing it. This is my card, and at a competitive rules level, I'm the one responsible for knowing how it works. By the way, not knowing how your cards work can backfire badly, because there's another world where I misinterpret what Matthew says, play consign on his turn, and he tells me it's illegal, and I lose the match to my own stupidity. I would snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. So what happened after this game? Well, obviously the judge wanted to have a word with me. He already talked to my opponent. I give my side of the story, and the judge determined that it was just an accident. If both of us understood how Consigned to Memory was supposed to work, then my only option was to play the Sink into Stupor on my turn and I would win, and the result wouldn't change. But here's the thing. Technically, the way the game played out, I actually lost. Accidents are always bound to happen in competitive Magic, but I personally have never felt the desire to benefit from it. The NRG Series Champions event is the premier finale of the year that everyone has been preparing for. It would really suck to get the opportunity to be here and then lose. But you know what? I don't look at every match of Magic like it's gonna be my last. There's always going to be another tournament around the corner. So shortly afterwards, I asked my opponent Matthew if he wanted the match point.
Anyway, I'll give it to my opponent's decision. If they want the win, I have no problem giving them the win.
And you know what? Matthew kindly declined it. In response to my sportsmanship card, Hoey plays his own sportsmanship card. He knew I had no bad intentions, and I even showed the Sink into Stupor at the end of the game, which means he was lost anyway. It was just important for me to give him the option of taking the match, given the game ended in such a ridiculous way. I hope you enjoyed today's story, and if you like this ridiculous Magic the Gathering video, well then you're just gonna love this one over here.